Hello, folks, and welcome to our game with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Michael Verney, as good a right-hand man as... you're really the Robin to my Batman, aren't you?
Just I would have had it the other way around, to be honest.
Really? I'm wondering how do the viewers feel about that? Who's Batman and who's Robin, folks? Or are we some other characters that have a sidekick in there? Maybe you're... Maybe I'm Sideshow Bob and you're Sideshow Cecil. Maybe that's more accurate.
Maybe so. Just speaking of Batman, like I was brought up on that Adam West Batman from the 60s. Do you remember that? Jeez, that was some crack.
Yeah, kapow. Yeah. You know, actually, I saw some tweet there last night. Was it Elon Musk or something? It was like, Batman is just all one word. Spider-Man is hyphenated. And then, like, I think it's Ant-Man is Ant space man. Why is there no consistency? That's all we ever ask for off referees, but why can't we get that for comic book characters?
Consistency is a very difficult thing to get in life. I was looking at the Dublin Offaly game last night, and I just thought there were some mad decisions. Even bit like, geez, I couldn't get my head around some of them. But listen, it all worked out in the end, as we'll talk about later.
Yeah, actually, Detox 101 is straight in Cleveland me. Jesus Shane, you must be quite envious of the county success of your great buddies Verney above in Offaly and Derek Lynch in Clare. Derek Lynch is, of course, a commentator for Clare FM, and they're flying. Richard Hogan says Dylan Rodney.
There you go. Yeah.
Hurling 1, 2, 3, 4. One thing I don't understand is the narrative that Cork are softer than other teams. No intercounty player is soft. The mental toughness to make it, i.e., performing day in, day in for a lifetime to make it. Thoughts? Yeah, I don't think you can be soft and get to that level. I mean, there's the odd county where obviously they're maybe not full of top stars, but in general, you have to be fair. Like, there's no windy county players, we'll put it that way.
No, oh God, no. I'll put it to you this way. Do you know what I often say to people when you're talking about, will X make it or will Y make it? And just, I know this is very, very simple, but like, if you give someone the handle of hurling the chest, will they take it? Or, will they take it and, disappear? Or will they take it and probably give it to you back twice as hard and absolutely go hard at you for 60 minutes in a game? There's like any player that plays at county level, you're going to find it very, very difficult to bully a lad physically or go after a fella. Like, softness, I don't know. It's not softness, but there's definitely, I think it's probably has been maybe more collectively with Cork, I would say, rather than individually, that maybe the spine, they've been maybe a bit too easy to go through in games. To say that they're actually soft is another thing completely, because you just would not get to the intercounty level if you were soft. You just wouldn't be putting in the hard yards that you need to put in to get there.
Yeah, I would have always said that I just don't think that the coaching has been good enough. Like, it's been pretty good, but I just think that that's where they've been let down. I do think that the players, I've been saying that for
Saint Slam's current manager, Pat Ryan, who was coach a number of years ago.
Right, you had me there because of his previous stint, but he wasn't the manager, so he wasn't deciding the tactics. He was probably.
But can I just say to you about that softness thing? I know it's very simplistic, but like, you can't go out in a county game, and whereas in a club game you think, if I give this lad 6 inches into the ribs, is he going to take it or is he just going to wilt away? At county level, that wouldn't even be on the radar. You might try and get inside the lad's head, but they're all going to be able to take it. They're all going to come back at you twice as hard.
So the week that is, there's plenty of talk about technology and GAA GO and can people use the technology across the board? I'm hoping Tony Considine now can get the show up on his phone, because we're going to have him on talking about the hurling. We're going to have big Joe Kernan on later on as well. Going to be great to chat to him, because I suppose it's 20 years since they played in that famous Ulster final in Croke Park, as you mentioned. And then there's also the case that he would have been up against Mickey Harte for so long. He's actually 2 years younger than Mickey Harte, so it's very interesting to get his thoughts on the Tyrone legend in there and what he's doing with Louth ahead of the Leinster football final. Now, the Clare camogie crisis, as it's called. Kildare, apologies. But there's been an open letter released to the county's clubs by GPA, and I'll just read out some of it. In terms of, this is the Kildare intermediate camogie team being withdrawn from the All-Ireland Championship, and they've appealed to clubs to convince the executive to reverse the decision. The players were informed via WhatsApp. This has caused great distress to us all as a playing group, and indeed anger. This is not only because the decision has been taken without our consent, but also because of the disrespect that has been shown and how the decision has been communicated to us. We want to be very clear. We want to represent Kildare to the best of our ability in the Camogie Championship. This is and has always been the case. So there's a bit more to it. But you've kind of seen the other side of it as well, that, you know, this isn't exactly a team that had 30 at training every night, is it?
No, it is. In any of these cases, you're kind of just looking for, probably what you're hearing is probably not the full story, you know, and you need to kind of get balance to the two sides. So from what I'm hearing is they had good numbers last year, and this year their average numbers of training were between 12 and 15. They haven't actually trained collectively since the week before Easter, which is the guts of a month ago. So they haven't really trained since the end of the league. They're in Division 3A league. I think they were beaten in a semi-final, but they've been really, really struggling with numbers. And I actually tried to contact someone in the Kildare camogie board. Now, nobody got back to me, but it's looking increasingly likely that they're not going to have a team this year in the championship. They've already been pulled. It doesn't look like there's going to be a reprieve. It doesn't look like this kind of impasse with the county board, that there's any sort of solution is going to be found. And not playing championship for a year, and this year as a whole, could have detrimental effects for Kildare camogie going forward as well. And from what I'm hearing, plenty of what the player's statement, plenty of what's in the player's statement is correct. Some other things maybe are a small bit debatable. So I think there's kind of maybe two sides to blame in this, maybe more so than has been maybe said in the media at the moment, because people just latch on to whatever is happening. I'm not saying the county board are blameless, far from it, and I'm not blaming the players either, but there's probably somewhere in the middle, there's probably a bit closer to the truth.
Yeah, because generally it's kind of like a statement out from the players, and then everyone kind of rallies in behind that and blames the old, the dark side, which is generally the county boards. Because, people assume, there's dinosaurs in there or whatever. But, like, it's interesting to get that bit more behind it. We'll move on to the GAA study that's found almost half of the puckouts were uncontested throughout the league. John Fogarty was writing about this, and he said that 49% of puckouts were uncontested. This was a study commissioned by GAA Stats, which concluded that the number of unchallenged restarts has increased 13% from 2018. So a lot of that is, of course, the accuracy of the puckouts. But, of course, a huge amount of it is the short puckouts. And if you were to watch the Wexford and Dublin game last week, and also Clare's approach against Tipperary, a lot of teams are just saying, you can have that short puckout, we're dropping out to the 45 here, best of luck to you. And I mean, if Kilkenny did that in the All-Ireland final last year, they may well have won it.
You think so?
Yeah, because they were on the 20, their three inside forwards were setting up on the 21, whereas Limericks were out 35 yards for the puckouts. So why do you that was the reason that so many players were left exposed in the half back line, and you had Tom Morrissey and Kyle Hayes and Gerard Hegarty just crisscrossing in the middle. The Kilkenny players were following them, left huge space at the sidelines. Whereas if the full forward line had to drop out to the 45, the other players to midfield, they could have held their ground a little bit more because there wouldn't be as much space. I honestly think that alone cost Kilkenny the All-Ireland.
Do you really? Yeah. Jeez, yeah. I think if they just let anybody have the ball from the puck out, I think they would have been in big bother. Particularly if they'd let probably Barry Nash have it at different times, just because particularly last year anyway, and at stages this year, but Limerick's ability to work it out is probably better than any other team. If they're just sitting back, I can see what you're saying, but I think Limerick probably would have just worked a pass to the middle of the park and pop points over at will from distance. I understand. If
you're out 45 though, like if you're out 45 and you don't press up, then when they start running it out, where if you're Barry Nash or Limerick or whoever, like who are you actually going to be able to play it to that's free? If you're only meeting people at the 45, it just means there's going to be more traffic out there.
Yeah, but you just need to beat one man. Is all you need to beat, and then you potentially have an overlap. I just think, I know what you're saying. It was never going to happen. Was one thing. I don't know. Did Cody? Under Cody? Did they give away many free puckouts, or did allow the opposition have the ball? It's not. I have to say, it's not something I particularly enjoy watching. Just a team totally conceding a puck out. Like Offaly did it at times last night, and just let Dublin have the puck out. At times they were able to work it out. Maybe at times they weren't. I don't know. I still like to see a ball being put down, not necessarily between two lads, but into space or something like that, a bit longer, and you can still profit from it a hell of a lot. But it's just amazing when you look at it and you see the call like a day and stats like that, how much hurling has changed realistically. Even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, would you have been conceding puckouts?
Yeah, like the analysis of 15 league games showed that just 10% of puckouts landed beyond the 45 in the other half of the field. That was 21% in 2021. So there's far fewer long balls.
Where do you think the short ball to the fullback / cornerback back to the keeper and then goes long? I wonder, was that factored into it at all? That happens quite a bit. Patrick Collins does it a good bit. I can think of one anyway, definitely. Or Murphy would do it a bit too.
Yeah, there's plenty of keepers who just do the 1-2s so that they can then blast it long. I don't know. I suppose if you were to go strictly with the stats, that does count as a short completed puck out, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, and then another thing was, and I found this very interesting, the amount of time that the ball was in play. It had been 38% back in 2016, but it had been 43% back in 2016. That's now dropped to 38%. So for a 75-minute game, so you're including injury time there, and I'd imagine that's been averaged out. The ball is in play out of 75 minutes, just 28 minutes, 38%. There's a lot of stop-start stuff in hurling these days, isn't there? And it's really been borne out with that. And I remember over the years, there used to be stats in soccer, how often was the ball in play. I always felt it was around 50%, give or take. Don't know if that's gone up or down in recent years. But just 28 minutes in play, feel a little bit short-changed. Games do feel too stop-start.
Do you think an analysis on the league is accurate compared to championship? When a lot of teams are kind of feeling teams out, like I know there was times
hurling.
There were times in the league there where, particularly Munster teams are playing each other, and it's just like, oh, we let them have the puck out or do whatever. We're not going to show them what we're going to do come summertime, if you get me. I'm not sure if it's an accurate representation, but the one about the amount of time the ball is in play is probably pretty accurate. When the ball is in play, it's flying around, but it does, like, people would refer to it as ping pong a bit, that it's kind of shot one end, shot another end. So the ball is obviously going out of play a lot more. Usually when the ball goes out over the end line, it's probably 12 to 15 seconds at least before it's back in play, I'd say.
Yeah, like even if it's slightly, not the same. Well, if it's not the same as championship, it can't be that much different. So, if those numbers are quite low. I'm going to go through a few comments here. A few years back, this is about Cork. Kevin O'Donovan, the current Cork GAA CEO, called for a Cork County Championship that had robust games, loosely refereed, probably to prepare players for the expectations at inter-county. And Detox 101 replies to John saying, he was right too, John. The last hurley broke below in Cork was in 1982, I'd say. They should ref the club games like any other county. Even the few I saw over the past few years were timid. Richard Hogan says that Cork appear to have the weight of history on their shoulders. It's nearly 20 years since they won Liam, and in a hurling mad county with high expectations, it all adds into the mix. The year is 2024, says TV Street. Verney's Offaly just knocked out Stapleton's Tipperary in an All-Ireland semi-final. GAA GO is now owned by Elon Musk.
I'd be grand. I take the first part of it anyway.
I'd take the second part. I'd say it'd be done unbelievably well. Like, Twitter is actually improving all the time. And I think of all those fools who said RIP Twitter just because Musk took over, just because he doesn't go for lefty liberal stuff all the time. And look, it's absolutely flying. And
how much would GAA GO cost?
Jeez, it'd probably be cheaper than currently.
I have to say, one thing about the GAA GO, which I do find kind of humorous enough, is this, it's less than €2 a game. Like, you're not watching the 40 games that are on GAA GO. You're watching a select few, particularly just if you're a hurling supporter. You're watching, it's probably working out at €7-8 a game, but it's whatever way you want to promote it.
Yeah, to me, again, like, you do have to pay for, like, at some point people are paying for games. Whether we'd love to have everything for free, but it's just not realistic either, is it?
No, it's not realistic. My issue is just the scheduling of the games that they've picked. If you look at it, Shane, like, the previous Saturday it was Limerick Clare, like, unbelievable, like, best game of the year probably last year, one of the best Munster finals of all time. Then you have Tip and Cork, one of the greatest rivalries in the GAA, let alone hurling. Now you have Lohan versus Davy on Saturday night, 3 in a row, all on GAA GO. I think, and it's grand to say there's going to be more Munster Championship matches later. Nobody thinks about later. Everybody just thinks about what's on this weekend? Where can I watch this? This is the only hurling game in town, and it's behind the paywall again. I just think they could have scheduled the games that they were showing on GAA GO a bit better. If 2 of those games, 3 that I've mentioned, were on RTE, or even 1, I think it would satisfy
you do
people
know
a
that
lot
Clare
more.
and Limerick was supposed to be on, only it was rescheduled to the Saturday because of the Great Limerick Run.
That's right, yeah, that's right.
So that was scheduled. It's been fun watching the GAA and Virgin going at each other publicly, hasn't it?
Yeah, and the GAA are rarely as they were relatively quick to fire back a Virgin. It was probably within 24 hours. That's not normally the case. And I don't know, you were probably hearing as well through back channels that there was an element of the Virgin statement that was points scored. I think there's a lot of people scoring points on the GAA and RTE at the moment as well, because they're probably easy points to score. But the GAA hit back pretty hard yesterday. The only thing is, a statement from the GAA will never garner as much interest or as much of a hoo-ha, because everybody just sees it as, it's like the government making a statement.
The big bad wolf.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, whereas everybody sniping at them is going to garner an awful lot more attention. But the story's definitely not going away. There's going to be a big hoo-ha again Saturday night. But the issue I have is, like, I looked at the Sunday game last. I have a couple of issues. Where's the Saturday game gone to? Because I think there's only been one. And when the Sunday game started last Sunday, I was like, so they're starting with football. They're starting with the two provincial finals that were both on terrestrial television earlier today. To me, that makes no sense at all. Show the game that the vast majority of people didn't see.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to put up some of the comments on screen. I'll let you read them out, and I'll try and ring Tony Considine here and see if we can get him going.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, lots of different comments in. Hurling 1, 2, 3, 4. Michael, you played intercounty for Offaly. How did you find the mental build up to games? Were you the nervous, calm type? I find it interesting to get your take on the intercounty pressure. No, wouldn't have been the calm type anyway back in the day. If I could do it all again, I'd probably be an awful lot calmer. But no, I would have probably let games get in on top of me. And I remember playing a minor match against Kilkenny. We played Leinster semi-final, and I kind of knew he was going to be marking Richie Hogan. I remember saying to someone beforehand, no, this is it. Like, this is the biggest game of our careers. This is the biggest game of our lives, stuff like that. So the mental build up wouldn't have been prepared really for that, particularly in the younger years of my career. I actually worked with a psychologist then for a while, and definitely helped with the mental preparation things. But I think it's one thing that lads can be really thrown into the deep end of that, the pressure around the game. How do you deal with meeting people? How do you shut yourself off? How do you stay relaxed? At the end of the day, with hurling, it's a game that we all started because we enjoyed it. But I think if you ask a lot of intercounty players, there's a few years there where they don't enjoy it. And I'd say if you nearly talk to anybody, they don't enjoy it at all. It gets a bit too much, gets a bit too serious. Then you get to the other side. So you started off enjoying it, then it got too serious. Then you get to the other side when you get 27 or 28, the penny kind of drops. You still take it as seriously, but you don't put as much pressure on yourself. And if you look at it, how many lads play unbelievably well at that age when they just have it all kind of sorted in their head? So I definitely think there's a bit of a mental deficit, but it's probably less with teams now because I think they're a lot more mentally prepared than they would have been.
Rapping Andy Kelly is a good one here. Shane, you need a bit of sun, lad. Verney's like the bronze Adonis.
The bronze Adonis, Steve Beaton. I have the moustache and everything. 1996 BDO World Darts Champion.
Right, whereas, to be fair now, I've got a couple of bits of lighting equipment here, there's no blemish being hidden here. They're all been exposed. But are you as tan on the back as you are at the front?
I don't have a tan on the front. I'd say it's just a bit of light. I'd say there's just a bit of light shining on my face here because I have a lamp about a foot away from me. No, but I'm definitely not tanned, unfortunately. I'm the Rodney. I'm definitely the Rodney of this because I'm one of the whitest people you will ever meet.
A real milk bottle. Tony Considine's phone sounds like it's been fully disconnected and he does not exist. The sound that came out of it there. So hopefully Tony will come right. Maybe he's sleeping on. You were a bit late on our little sort of pre-show call this morning as well.
Listen, it can happen.
Yeah, you were. So Cork Club Championship is a great watch, not blighted yet by Swarm tackling, rucks fested, peppered with head high.
Different people have different opinions on that. Some would say it's a non-contact game where it's just like tit for tat, score one and score the other end. There's not that much. I'd say one of the things that helped the Bards win it this year was they would have been robust enough now, and that's a lot to do with some of the players they have. They've got a lot of big physical players. But that would be a lot of people's criticism of the Cork Championship. Do you want to see an exhibition game, or do you want to see, you know, as I say, a good, hard, manly game?
Yeah. Detox 101, the Sky deal was better value, obviously, than GAA GO, is what he's saying. You got the hurling, soccer, snooker, darts, home and away, and the Page 3 girls, all for the same price.
I have to say, when I got the Sky deal, I think I only got it last year. I used to just go because
For the rest
No. I got it for the hurling during the summer. And before that, I just go to one of the boys' house that maybe had Sky or something like that because it was two men. But I wouldn't have been watching any. I had great notions of watching other things. I had it on my laptop, but I would only just watch the GAA, and that's all I watched. To be honest with you,
SummerSlam or WrestleMania, no?
No, you wouldn't. Not within that sports package. I think that's all pay-per-view now. But to me, GAA GO is perfect for someone like me. I'd have to say, in the sense of I just want to click in and watch that match. I don't want all the other hoo-ha that goes with it. But for like I'm a bit of a technophobe, and I wouldn't be great with technology. But like, imagine how difficult it is for older people to try and, you know, get it set up on your telly, or have some, you know, extension wire that you can have it on your TV. Like, older people aren't going to watch a game on their phone, or they're not going to watch a game on their laptop generally. So there's a lot of convenience that's not there. Like, you know, when you turn on the TV or whatever, the Netflix app comes up and you're able to click in, and it's easy to, like, the GAA GO isn't at that stage yet. In time, hopefully it will be.
Yeah, but surely you can get an app for the TV at this stage. I don't know, like, I use it via my phone or laptop, but there must be an app. But like, surely we're in a stage where, like, RT have extra channels, like the news channel, like +1 and all that kind of stuff, where people could have the option to just pay on the phone and just say, yeah, give me old GAA GO there, and that they just have that channel then for the year. Like, if it works with other TV stations, why couldn't that be an option here? But maybe there are extra costs to that. I don't know. But surely that's an option. And that would bring older people who are used to doing it that way, it would bring them back into the mix.
Surely, Shane, we're surely getting towards, and maybe it would be a free channel, I don't know, or what it would be, but we're surely getting towards a GAA TV channel in time, are we? And I'm not saying it has to be running 24 hours or anything like that, but imagine if it started at 5 o'clock in the evening, and we were even, like, every night we were running different All-Ireland finals, different All-Ireland semi-finals, with some highlights packages, with some, you know, analysis or whatever it is, with the 2 OurGame boys talking for half an hour or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Talking rot. Here's a good one. Detox 101. Lads, what's your favourite venue to play in / watch a game in? I'd say favourite venues to play in, I always liked, well, I thought the Athletic Grounds was brilliant to play in Armagh. I like O'Moore Park in Portlaoise, but maybe that's just associating it with a particularly good day. And Croke Park's unreal, obviously.
Yeah, Brendan's Park in Burr, I love that. That would be probably one of my favourites. Nolan Park is just Nolan Park is underestimated in terms of the quality of the pitch, and Thurles as well. They'd probably be the three, and there's always a really good atmosphere in the three of them. I don't know, there's something, you know, when you, even if there's 1,000 people in the ground and you can feel them in on top of you, it's just, there's just something a bit different, yeah. And it's funny, John Milan described playing in Parnell Park last week as like playing out in your back garden. And he said it was like playing out in your back garden, but there's somebody talking in your ear the whole time. Like, it is the most hostile, like it is.
I love it.
It's all in on top of you. If you're on your game and playing well, a venue like that is an absolute dream because you feel invincible. If you're after making making a couple of mistakes, missed a couple of pickups, your man's after getting the run on you, it's not a good venue at all.
Yeah, no, I actually like it. And then in terms of watching a game, if you ever go up to the TV gantry, which is just a little bit higher and kind of hanging over the sideline at the Gaelic grounds in Limerick, brilliant place to watch a match. I'd often go up there. If I knew the Tip FM boys were up there, I'd go in inside limb beside them, and it's just an unbelievable view. Yeah,
very, very good view. I was up in the gantry in Nolan Park for the Leinster colleges final, doing commentary with Clubber, and it's literally like, the view in Nolan Park is good anyway, but you're literally on top of the field. Like, there is nothing you cannot see. It's fantastic to actually see it. You know,
explicit views.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And you know, the behind the goal footage that you would see, that maybe RT would have or whatever. This is kind of like you can see nearly everything from up there. It's brilliant place to watch a game.
Yeah, okay. Keep your comments coming in. Let us know, where do you like to watch games, or what was the favourite place that you ever watched a game at or played at. Hurling 1, 2, 3, 4. What club team has the most players on a county panel in the Liam McCarthy Cup? It must be Kilkenny. Or sorry, it must be Ballyhale Shamrocks.
Yeah, the 6 starters, Ronan Corcoran on top of that. The 6 starters for the first game against Westmeath, Ronan Corcoran on top of that, and definitely 1 or 2 more as well. I'd say they've the guts of 8 or 9. There was talking about having 12 or 13 at the start of the year, but I think it's down at 8 or 9 now.
Is there any other team that would, like, I mean, you'd think Ballygunner would have that, but obviously they don't. Just, I don't know, for whatever reason, those players aren't
in Carlow, like you talking about Liam McCarthy Cup teams, I was thinking Mullins and Mount Leinster Rangers would have a fair few in Carlow. Like within Limerick, what are we talking? Like Patrick's Well, brilliant club, of 3 unbelievable players on it. Don't think they have a few, but it's probably not more than 5, you know?
Yeah. So Detox 101 says, Verney, are you familiar with Racing TV? It's high quality. Is that a model for GAA? They have a promotion for lads with horses and ponies. Surely GAA Go will give a discount for lads with club membership.
Yeah, no, Racing TV is a very, very good channel, and they're churning out content the whole time as well. They're previewing stuff in the morning, they're talking to trainers, they've all the racing content, and a lot of the time they're just it's just replays, even for a couple hours in the evening. So you come in, you missed the 2 o'clock, you missed the 2:30, you missed the whatever, and it's just replays and replays and replays. And yeah, no, it's good.
Are they backed hugely by betting companies though?
I'm not that familiar with them in the last maybe year, 18 months. I don't think it's sickening anyway. I'll put it to you that way. But the nature of racing is that a lot of it is going to be backed by that. But I don't think it's sickening to the point of, oh Jesus, another ad for X, Y, and Z, and I won't even give the bookies the nod there.
So by the same token, by the same measure, what's your least favourite ground, says ML89? Personally, playing in Pierce Stadium is the worst. I'd say, I haven't been there since, I'd say, about 2014. But you know, in Drogheda, is it also called the Gaelic grounds up there in Louth, where they...
Is it the Athletic grounds or the Gaelic grounds?
I think it might be the Gaelic grounds. I'll look it up, but God, I remember being there for a Louth Westmeath game, just thinking this place is a kit. Maybe the pitch was okay, but I just thought it was awful.
Yeah, just think of least favourite venues. Yeah, I wouldn't have been. We never liked going up to Parnell, even though we had a couple of good victories there, and we beat Ballyboden there one year with Borough fairly comprehensively. Other places, I don't mind. Like, say, like, I've never played a game in RD, but like it's not the best ground in the country. But if I was playing there, I wouldn't mind. Like, a lot of the time, you see as well, I'm thinking from a back's point of view, and you're thinking, a great big wide open pitch is brilliant, like, if you're a forward, but I prefer the tight kind of rural agricultural type of venues. So venues that maybe forwards would really like, maybe I wouldn't like, and vice versa, you know?
Yeah, I like it. Where are the fortresses in Ireland? There's a St. Finbarr's in Cabra here in Dublin. They play in a ground called, I think it's the St. Pope John Paul II ground, but it's referred to as the Bogies. And actually, so we played a league match there a few weeks ago, and I put it into Google Maps, and it said Pope John Paul II ground, the Bogies, and it was like,
go away.
I swear to God, I was like, what? It actually said that. But yeah, that'd be more of a fortress than, like, it's not. It's a nice place actually, but it'd be just more of a fortress.
Outside of like Tip winning in Cusack Park, which they seem to be able to do at will recently, generally Cusack Park is a fair fortress.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't know the feeling, but yeah, it would be something.
There's a ground, you've talked about the Killa Villa club before, Ballyshkanaka Villa, but Killa Villa is situated just outside Rossgrey and Tip, but it's actually on the Offaly side of the border, and you'd play there quite rarely. But there's a hill on one wing, like, I mean to say, there's an actual hill on the pitch. Like, it's a proper hill, and there's no way, unless you're playing there every week, that you could get used to it. Like, it is an actual, like, a mound. So that has to be a massive advantage to them. Sully 186 Ballybuffet, which they've an unbelievable record there. I think until this year, Mayo had never beaten Donegal in senior football in Ballybuffet. That's a fair fortress. Then they go and play in Letterkenny, where they have a really bad record, apparently. It's mad.
Yeah. Adrian McGrath says Thurles is a fortress for Clare. They're doing quite well there at the moment. Boom Boom 43 is saying need a Sherpa for the second half. Are you talking about Ballybuffet there?
Could be talking about Killavina either, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So we've gotten a half an hour through the show. No sign of Tony Considine, but sure, hopefully he'll show up eventually. Should we get into talking a little bit about the big game of the weekend in hurling, which is Clare against Waterford?
I'd say we kind of have to, don't we? Again, it is behind GAA GO, obviously, but it's there's several different strands to it. It's yet another chapter to the Brian Lohan versus Davy Fitzgerald battle, which you'd have to say Brian Lohan has definitely had the strong arm of that battle in recent years. I think does he have two championship victories over him when he was Wexford manager. Even when Davy played Clare in the 17 quarter final, I think it was Donald Maloney and Jerry O'Connor were over Clare. Clare won that game as well. So Davy probably has not a great record against his native county. But it's definitely an interesting strand to the game before we even talk about the game. Just the fact that there's been so much of a hoo-ha between the two of them in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game you can't help but be pumped for because, and like remember a couple of years ago, there was the man on the sideline for Clare, throwing in a few digs at Davy, and he was quite upset by that. And that man is going to be. He's still involved in the backroom team of Clare. I saw him at the match there recently against Tipperary. Is there going to be a bit of jawing going on as well? And like people can say it's unsavoury and all that, but let's call a spade a spade. There's a reason scandalous stuff is always in the front of newspapers. It's because we're all prurient creatures. We all want to see this sort of stuff. We want a bit of scandal. And we know that a little bit of that could happen this weekend. Let's call a spade.
Yeah. Well, what would you talk about most after a match? Like that you played in and that you're involved in on the sideline. Most of what ends up being talked about is, X, Y, or Z said this to me, and I said this to him, and two boys were chawing over and back, and it's like it's all those that is a big part of hurling, the GA. It's a big part of sport as well. So there's part of us absolutely crave that, and even like you've been the same, I'm sure. During matches, like someone could say something to you, and you could say anything back to them. Do you know what I mean? Not going below the belt or anything like that, but like if someone says something to you, just react and you say something back, and it all kind of stays between the confines of the pitch or the sideline or whatever. But it's fascinating to see what can happen and what can be said and what can go on. And unless you're down there, you're not really privy to it. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of barbs thrown over and back on Saturday night. And listen, that probably adds to the occasion a bit more again.
So do you remember the sort of maverick era of Waterford, which was, everything that included Justin McCarthy and maybe Gerald McCarthy? Like, that used to be a gunslinging Waterford team that got goals. They were hungry for goals. And then I think, I remember doing an article before, but I don't have the stats here in front of me. But there was like a period of 10 years there where Waterford were scoring like 19 or 20 points per game in the championship. It was over a long period of time. I'd have to dig out the article. But this current Waterford team, in their 2 games so far in the championship, have scored 19 points against Limerick and 18 points against Cork.
Yeah.
They've lost their last 5 Munster championship games. They haven't scored a goal this year in the championship. Can they change that this weekend? Because surely they have to. And like, you look at the players they have. Stephen Bennett, Desi Hutchinson, Ozzie Gleeson. There's a couple of more you could throw into the mix as well. And I'm wondering why Patrick Curran has gone so far down the pecking order. Look at how good he looked a year ago. Whereas now he's not being used. And this might point somewhat to how Davy Fitz picks his team. But like, he's not really in the mix again. And you're like, he's so talented. Like, and maybe he's not going well in training, but it's just surprising.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Like, geez, Shane, you can go down through 8 to 9 really good forwards that would really hurt you and have hurt teams in the last couple of years. Waterford are obviously in an All-Ireland final in 20. They were in a semi-final in 21. Won the league last year. Like, I'm kind of confused by how they're playing completely differently than they were then. I thought it would be Cal plays a bit of a running game as well, something similar to what Davy would do. But Waterford have kind of fallen back. Well behind the ball now at this stage. They're kind of sitting really, really deep. As you say, they're not giving themselves a chance really to put up a 223 or a 224. You're going to hope and they're potentially going to cut loose at the weekend. That'll mean the shackles will have to come off somewhat defensively and systematically if that is the case. But and that's probably going to mean changes of personnel as well. I don't know what the story is with Austin Gleeson and why he hasn't started and finished the game this year, but he has to be in from the start. He just has to be. This is it for them. They've gotten a lifeline that probably looked unlikely. With the draw with Cork and Tip, kind of mean it's a fair chance if Waterford win their 2 games, they go through. So the cagey stuff has to kind of go out the window here, and they need to throw the kitchen sink at it. And you have to remember as well, against Limerick, there was a lot of brilliant stuff against Limerick. They were trying to win a certain type of game, but they nearly did, and it was just a lack of accuracy in front of the post that caught them in the wind-up. But I'd be expecting changes. I would be expecting Patrick Curran to be in from the start. I'd be expecting Ozzie Gleeson to be in from the start.
Patrick Fitzgerald.
Yeah,
they can't all start.
Yeah, no, I'd probably be putting Patrick Fitzgerald in as well, particularly just about how influential he's been off the bench. And he just looks, I don't know, I was surprised. I didn't think he'd look ready-made, but he kind of does. And this idea of holding a lad back or you just have to throw everything you have at it right now. And hopefully to be able to get Stephen Bennett back into a bit of form as well. But if they do have a right good cut, they are a dangerous animal.
We were talking about the amount of scores that Stephen Bennett had got from play in the league, and I don't think he'd scored from play in the league, had he?
No.
And so far in the championship now, he's scored 3 points from play. How can he go from Hurler of the Year contender a couple of years ago to form like this? Is it him personally, or is it the team setup? Because sometimes you give players a bit of an out by saying it's the setup, and he was very unlucky last day. He soloed through. He smashed a shot into the top corner, or tried to. It hit off Damon Cahallan's helmet, and it goes back out. A few times he did decide, I'm going to go at this Cork team, and he was having success. It just didn't end up in the back of the net.
Yeah, no, 100%. If you remember Bennett's unbelievable score against Kilkenny in the All-Ireland semi-final 20, where he picked the ball up around the 45. I don't know. To me, there's a lad that is not restricted or chained by anything that's going on. They've been given a fair bit of freedom. And I just wonder at the moment, are they being a bit restricted? And I'm just hoping the shackles come off this weekend, because if they do, they could cut loose and put up a huge tally. But I don't know, as well as that, if you're used to playing a system now and playing a certain type of way, is it a lot more difficult to cut loose then when you've gotten programmed or gotten used to playing a certain type of way? But you can't get away from the fact that Waterford have only won 1 of their 14 round-robin games, and that was last year in the first round against Tip. So to say that they could put 2 wins back-to-back, maybe that's a bit of a departure to say that, given all known form that we have in front of us.
John Noonan says, Shane, is there any chance you could give a shout-out to the local postman, Riffy Prout? I'm wondering, am I being set up here? Is that really a name? But he's a proud Limerick hurling man that's driving around the roads of Cashel listening now. Sound, great show. Thanks very much. Adrian McGrath also says, the simple issue is that Lohan's Clare performed in Munster Championship, including versus Tip this year. The question is, can Waterford, without Kylie and De Burka, play their system at that standard? Detox 101, I think Bennett should move further out, needs to be on more ball, solo in and bury it. He tried it a few times lately, but seems to be caught for whether to go for a goal or point. Desi Hutchinson has scored 4 points in 2 championship games. Bennett has just 3 from play. They're not getting too much out of Ozzie. Obviously, not starting him is a huge factor with that. I mean, it just feels like they have all these weapons, and they just, there's a composer with the orchestra, and they're not getting a tune out of it.
Yeah, there are an awful lot of weapons there. There's no point in saying any different. I wouldn't be playing Caleb Lyons in centre back as well. I'd be putting him out right wing and let him maraud forward. Don't tie him down to a role.
But you would have said that Jack Fagan isn't as used to, let's say, the sweeping role, for example.
No, he's probably not. To be honest with you, if they're going to try and have a good kind of crack at the weekend, I wouldn't be playing a sweeper for the large majority of the game. I'd be hoping that Ira Daly's fit to come back in as well. I'd probably bring Cormac Daly's energy in as well. But I don't know, Shane. Depends whether I'll put you this way: are they going to try and save this season, or are they going to by playing a bit off the cuff the way we know Waterford have traditionally played well down through the year? Are they going to stay to the system for next year or for the year? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of. Do we stay doing what we've been doing for the long term, or do we try and have a cut and save the season and do something different in this game that could save our season if we win?
Do Waterford just have one too many bogeys on the field? They have all the talent that we've named, but there's maybe just one or two players, and obviously we're not going to be crude enough to kind of call them out or whatever, but they do have a couple of players that probably aren't quite at the same standard of the opposition or the standard of the players that have dropped out.
I think even if you go back to the great Waterford side, they, if you're hand on heart, a lot of those players would have said that they had Ken McGrath and Tony Brown and Milan and Shanahan and Owen Kelly and Paul Flynn, etc. But they probably were carrying a few players, maybe particularly in defence or that. It kind of looks a bit similar now, and those players maybe can get away within a system. Maybe it won't be as exposed as badly, maybe. But maybe you're suffering at the other end of the pitch as a result of that then. Maybe you're not putting up the sort of tally. Maybe you're being restricted a bit more at the other end of the pitch. I just hope they take a right good cut, because if they're standing back and they let Clare have a cut at them, Clare will take a right cut at them and they'll win by 7 or 8 pulling up.
And do you think we're going to see a handshake between Davy and Lohan?
I think there was a handshake the last time, was there? I think
doesn't mean that they'll do it this time.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, it doesn't mean that they'll do it this time. I suppose, listen, a lot of that at the end of a game would depend on what's happened for the previous 75 minutes, what's been said, what hasn't been said, were there controversial incidents. Realistically, it's just, I just think it's gas within a game. If you look at the Waterford Limerick game, like that all bubbled over because of an incident right in front of the Waterford dugout. That's when things go awry, really, isn't it? Like if that happens at the other end of the pitch, it's probably not nearly as bad. But there's a tendency that things just seem to happen close to the dugouts, close to the opposition manager, close to where there's hangers on, and that's when it gets really messy. Is it messy another word for fun? Yes, it probably is.
We're looking for large portions of messy this weekend. So we know that Waterford are gone if they lose this game. But even more interesting is if Waterford lose this game, that's Clare very much in the mix. If Cork beat Clare, then what will happen is Limerick are one defeat away from being out of the championship in either of their last 2 games. Lose either and they're gone if those 2 results happen. Isn't that tasty enough? Like, because I'm not saying we want to see Limerick gone or whatever. Well, we kind of do, because we want to feel like everyone has a chance of winning the All-Ireland then. Like if Limerick get out, you feel like, okay, they're starting to build up form now and they're probably going to win the All-Ireland again. But if you just wanted to just be completely up in the air, because who on earth would win the All-Ireland if Limerick got knocked out? It would be so exciting from that point of view, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, it would. And there's a kind of a thought that if Limerick can survive in Munster, they're heavy favourites to win the All-Ireland. They are. Even third. They'll take third. They just want to qualify at this stage. But it's so up in the air at the moment. And we don't know how they're going to adapt to Sean Finn's loss. We're not 100% sure about Keane Inch. And there's a lot of, form kind of question marks. So, yeah, no, if certain teams could beat other teams, it's going to make it... It's already, like, unbelievably interesting. But if results work that way, and we say Limerick have to... Like, Limerick are going to have to get to 5 points if that happens. Do you know what I mean? So it gets very, very interesting. Tipperary have 3 at the moment and are looking pretty good, but could easily end up out. Very, very easily end up out. This is all the looks of a 2019 Leinster Championship, realistically, doesn't it? Where Galway were beating All-Ireland finalists the year before, All-Ireland winners the year before, and they go out and score difference in a chaotic final day. It has all the look of that this year.
Yeah, and I just wonder, like, back to Waterford, will Cork Daly, like, who looked so impressive last year, will he get a bit more game time? Maybe he's carrying something. Paul Newtape says the only thing we're guaranteed is that Waterford will be better against Clare this time than they were last year. And obviously they were hammered in that game. It's 50-50, I'd say, this time. It would be more exciting if Waterford win. Aidan McGrath says Austin Gleeson has to play 6. If Waterford play off the cuff, it would suggest that the manager is no longer in charge. Fagan should never have gone back. They have no ball winner up front like him. Rather, Curran ran over him every day of the week. Curran over him every day of the week. I'm not sure who you're referring to there, One Stop Auto. The Waterford hurling team, says Richard Hogan, their performances are symptomatic of everything going on in Waterford GAA at the moment. Poor form from team in all codes, no home games, etc.
Just on that point, Shane, so like we've said it on the show previously, but Waterford have lost all 15 championship games at minor, 20, senior across both codes. They don't have a ground to play in at the moment. Like, things are not hectic at the moment, and they need the senior team, the flag bearing team, to put in some sort of performance and probably save a bit of face, I would say, as well.
Okay, and One Stop Auto was saying he'd prefer to have Curran over Mikey Kiley.
Yeah, but
And like,
Mikey Kiley at Fitzgibbon Cup level is a destroyer. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know if it's because he's been playing maybe more of a Lohan man up there now. But at Fitzgibbon Cup level, he's a destroyer and he's a paw on him. But I don't know. You see him at Fitzgibbon Cup level playing with confidence. And then you wonder with some of them, are they playing with confidence now? Are they playing slightly restricted? But I have to say, like that defeat, that Clare hammering against Waterford last year in Cusack Park, surely that is fairly fresh in the Waterford players' minds as well. That has to be, like, there's probably been a few low points in recent years, but that has to be the lowest point of all of their careers in recent times. Going from being an All-Ireland final, semi-final, against Limerick the previous years, league champions, to, leaving with your tail between your legs. I think it was 14 points in Cusack Park. It could have been 40 points. Surely that's going to be fresh in their minds, and there'd be a bit of a reaction based on that alone.
yeah, I ended down tools last year. Let's call a spade a spade. So Davy Fitz said about the situation at the moment. Cork lost the first 2 games last year and qualified. You don't know. We're certainly just taking the next game as it is. So we're looking forward to having a go. We lost 2, and we always knew playing Limerick in the first round. Some people suggested to me that we should have just held for the Cork game, and that was never going to be the case. You want to go out and be competitive in every game, and we did. We put a lot of effort into the first 2 games. I'm looking at it straight out as follows. We've Clare next. We'll give it 110% in that. To be fair, they were very close to Limerick, and the chance was there, and they left it behind them, the red card and everything. They didn't manage the situation. We'll move on anyway. We'll both give our predictions, actually. I'm going to go for Clare to win this game.
Yeah, Clare would win by 5-6 in the wind-up, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so Owen Downey, he's set to miss the under-20 final. We also reckon that Adam Hogan, if he's going to play in either of these senior matches, he's also going to miss the under-20 final. It's Cork against Clare. Again, ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's mad. Like even the ruling is kind of confusing. So if he plays on Saturday night against Waterford, I assume that's him out of Monday's final. If he doesn't play Saturday and he plays Monday's final, can he go and play against Cork? No, that's a couple of weekends. That's a couple of weekends away. It's not the weekend after, is it? I don't think it is. It's 2 weekends there. Yeah, the whole thing is very confusing. I can't imagine from a manager's point of view how difficult it is to. I presume a decision is made with senior management quite quickly, and they say, "Listen, we're pulling this guy, and you're just not going to have him, and it's not an 11th hour kind of thing." But just on Clare, we'll chat about it a bit more. But like their minors and 20s are flying at the moment as well, and it looks like. On the flip side of Waterford, it looks like things are fairly rosy in Clare now, whereas a couple of years ago, you were probably pushing the panic button.
Yeah. Okay, so last year...
Mark Meehan said last lads, he said last year Waterford had the best panel last year. Yeah, would stand over that 100%.
And we're naming players and saying, this lad's class, and why is nothing happening here? Why are they not scoring? They have all these brilliant forwards. So I do think that they've got a couple of players in certain positions that are, you can see that there's a bit of shallowness when it comes to the panel. So fair enough, he does have a point there, Mark. But there's some talent there at the same time in other positions.
Yeah, serious talent. Yeah, I know they obviously lost, would say, Pádraig Mahoney. He was maybe hoping that they might get Stephen O'Keefe back this year again, which didn't obviously happen. But on paper, if you're talking about talent, Waterford have a hell of a lot of it, and I'd stand over that last year, no problem, that they had the best panel in the country, no problem standing over that, even though it obviously didn't come to fruition.
Okay, so the Joe McDonagh this weekend is kind of interesting in the sense, it can be very interesting in the sense if Offaly put out a strong team against Carlow. Offaly are already through to the final, so they're well within their rights to put out pretty much a much changed team against Carlow. If Carlow win, they're in. They're a point ahead of both Kerry and Laois. And we could have a situation where both Kerry and Laois have drawn with Carlow, which is interesting. So if Kerry and Laois draw, and if Offaly beat Carlow, you'll have 3 teams that will each be on 6 points, with Offaly already through. So then it would go down to scoring difference because of a 3-way tie. And they've all drawn with each other anyway. And it would actually be Laois who would go through. So, yeah. But that seems unlikely. Surely you'd imagine Carlow will win here against a disinterested Offaly team.
If you were Johnny Kelly, what would you do here? So they've won their 4 McDonagh Cup games. They played 7 league games, drew 1, won 6. So they're unbeaten in league and championship. Does that come into your head at all?
I'd be playing a second 15 here.
Okay, but does it come into your head at all where, oh, we're on a bit of an unbeaten run here, there's great momentum in the county at 20 level, you just, you wouldn't...
2019, Tipperary didn't need any sort of a result at all against Limerick. In the final group game, Limerick rested all their key players, Keane Lynch, Declan Hannon, and there was somebody else. Tipperary ended up losing Cathal Barrett, and Bonner Maher was out for the season with a cruciate in a game that did not matter. I would be going second 15. Don't need a result. Could do with the break. Tune yourselves up for the final.
Your last and only win against John Kiley's Limerick in championship.
Hey, we get lots with that day. We get lots with it.
You'd nearly prefer, like, because like that sort of a thing when you're doing a stats piece or you're doing stats, like that's like an anomaly almost because it didn't really count, but it's still there, obviously. Now, I'd be the same. I think Offaly have earned the right to play whatever team they like. And again, like there's probably guys going to come in that may potentially come into the squad or into the team, maybe they're outside of the 26, that have a glorious chance to make the 26 for the biggest day, one of the biggest days of Offaly's year. They're playing an All-Ireland final in Croke Park on the 27th of May. So lads are going to get a chance. So you'd hope that standards wouldn't dip too much. They probably will naturally dip a bit though.
Yeah, okay. So commenting here, ML89 about Waterford. 3 different managers couldn't get them motoring for more than a year or get over the line. Maybe they aren't as good as we think they are. Adrian McGrath talking about Kiley. Kiley has Mark Rogers beside him at UL creating a double threat. That one game Rogers didn't play in the semi and UL got no goal and scraped the win. Kiley with Waterford is ploughing a lone furrow. So, I mean, that could be a point as well. You'd think Kiley with Desi in beside him or Ozzy or something like... I mean, Ozzy and Desi side by side if they feel they've enough out the field, or would you be playing Ozzy in his own half as a centre-back maybe?
I probably would let Ozzy play 6, I'd say, to be honest with you. He doesn't have to go on marauding runs maybe, particularly if they're worried about his fitness. Maybe that's why he hasn't started. But I'd plant him number 6 and just let him hurl on instinct, to be honest with you. But again, I've been involved with teams where we've had... how should we say, tight enough tactical play, you know, that we play a certain way or systematic play, and then, you know, the reins will be loosened maybe a bit when you need to for a game, a real do or die game. And there's been a couple of times where you could just produce a performance and lads are just a bit free and they play different in themselves. Now, takes a lot for a manager to do that. Takes a lot for a manager to say, oh, I'm not so sure if what we've been doing so far is right. And it maybe you have to be a very strong character because it could undermine what you were doing before that. But at the end of the day, they need a result on Saturday night, and it doesn't matter how they get it. So I'm hoping to see Waterford, like the old give it a last jack, you know, and really take a right good cut at Clare.
Yeah, so Kildare then against Down is a de facto relegation clash. It's their final game. Both teams are on 0 points. Nobody else can go down. Kildare, they've scored 355 in 4 games, conceded 985. Not great. Down conceded scored 261, conceded 1599. How do you see this one going?
I think Down need to win to stay up. I think if it's a draw, Kildare will stay up on score difference. God, it's a hard enough game to call. Like they played in the Christy Ring Cup final during COVID. Kildare, it was good. It was a good game, tight enough game, but Kildare won probably 2 scores in it at the end. And you would say on paper that Kildare are a better side, but Kildare are coming into this like shorn of confidence, and it will be, you know yourself in them relegation games that anything can happen. This is a one score game, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Down got the result.
ML89, Waterford like Spurs, McGrath like Pochettino, seem to have great connection with players. 1-0 major, then proven winners came in after that. A manager like Cahill and Davy, who were similar to Conte and Jose Mourinho, still 1-0.
Great comparisons, in fairness to him.
Well, we have Joe Kernan joining us now to talk a bit of football. Joe, what do you make of that comparison?
I wouldn't want to get involved in that, to be honest.
Do you know we were just talking?
Take anybody.
Can we just ask you, broadly speaking, what have you made of the football championship so far this year? The Tailteann Cup's coming up this weekend. The All-Ireland series is coming up. Obviously, we've got the Leinster final and the Ulster final this weekend. Have you been excited with what you've seen so far?
Naturally, at the start of every championship, it sort of starts off slow, but there's been some great games. You know, in Ulster, the Tyrone and Monaghan and Derry was very open. There was a lot of scores. There were a lot of opportunities. Something that we haven't seen over this last couple of years. There's an awful lot of goal chances for both teams, which is great to see. From our own point of view, the Ulster Championship hasn't been kind to us over this last number of years. We probably had an easier section. So, you know, we won the 3 games. People have said the opposition was poor. You always have to beat whoever's there. But the beauty of any championship, the more games you play and the more you win, let it be scraping through or a good win, the better you get. The confidence grows in every match. So we're in the final now. There's going to be a good few matches coming up. It's going to test everybody. This new sort of game plan, you sort of know who's going to be there at the end. You can name 5 or 6 teams because the strongest teams always get there. There was one thing that struck out to me about a month ago on TV when some of the pundits were talking about, I think it was Paul Flynn. He says a lot of the bigger teams will set their stock out to be primed for the last 8. Now, Dublin might have that luxury and Kerry might have that luxury and other teams, but, you know, up in Ulster, we don't have that luxury. You have to take every game as it comes and you have to win every game because the day you think you're going to win is the day you could be caught. So, but you will have a lot of familiar faces. And the Tailteann Cup, I think last year's tournament was absolutely brilliant. Some of the games were great. You've seen what happened Westmeath when they won it. It was a good final. It gives a county a great lift. You know, I always believe you're better winning something than winning nothing. You know, when players have something to play for, you get more out of them. So I hope I think this year the Tailteann Cup will be better because there's a lot of good teams in there just dropped down off the edge of the top 15 or 16 in the country. So hopefully that'll be a good success as well this year.
Michael.
Yeah, Joe, just on even Armagh this year, probably a disappointing kind of finish to the league. I'd say you're happy enough how they've kind of bounced back and got the could easily the wheels could have came off the wagon a small bit there, but they've done what they would have been expected to do, I suppose. They've gotten through to an Ulster final when maybe there was some question marks after getting relegated from Division 1.
Well, second, there's always going to be question marks, but it was very disappointing to drop down from Division 1 because that's where you want to be every year. Armagh put a lot into the league the last couple of years. We got off to a good start last year, and we're unlucky this year. With a bit of luck, we could have been in the playoffs. You know, there was only 3 or 4 points, 3 points separate, and we lost the matches we lost. We only lost by a point or 2, and that was the same last year. So it proved we're able to stay or equal the teams at that. But just those games got away from us, and I just hope we learned. We lost by 1 or 2 points, whereas, you know, I'd be hoping this Sunday we take the handcuffs off and go for it. But there's one thing that seems to be with us this year, and that is maybe a wee bit of luck. And any team that's ever going to win anything needs a wee bit of luck. We're starting to score goals, and the goals are coming from a wee bit more direct play. You know, I remember a wise man told me a long time ago, Sean Biden, he says, if you're going to make mistakes, make them in their full back line, not in your own. So that means you get the ball, kick it in early, and move it fast. And we are actually play better, look better, and make more chances when we are a wee bit more direct. We have the men in there, in Ree and Andrew Murnahan and Conor Turbett. You know, in that inside lane, if you've done 2 big boys in there and Turbett coming at speed, you know, you look at Kerry and you look at Galway and you look at the teams you think are going to be there, Dublin, when they get that ball inside, you've men coming at speed all the time, breaking the lane. So I hope that we have the handcuffs off a wee bit more this weekend. And Derry have showed there is a bit of a weakness there in the full back line, that there's goals being scored. To have the luxury, or maybe it's not a luxury, that they had to take Brendan Rodgers from full back out to midfield, and now they have probably the best midfield partnership in the country there. So midfield is going to be a big block for us if we can't break even.
This is a left field question, Joe, but you're talking about luck there. In your own time as a manager, can you remember any particular slice of luck that you got in a game, or something that happened totally against the grain? Is there anything that stands out?
I was lucky to get the job.
Good man,
so,
good man.
The semi-final against Dublin, the best forward in the country missed the 30-yard free kick. You know what I mean? So, you know, the wind goes either way. That can go over the bar. We can drop our heads and think, here we go again, and lose the replay. But it hit the post, and most important of all, we got the ball to come off the post. We were waiting for it. We always told the boys, every ball, every shot you take is going to hit the operator, going to hit a post. And poor Francie, slow and all as you might be, he got the ball and got it out the job back. So yeah, there's always a wee bit of luck.
It's a lick of paint, isn't it? Like sometimes a lick of paint goes in your favour, the ball drops that way, and you're All-Ireland champions. You're only ever All-Ireland. Like small things.
But you look at Oisin with the penalty. You know what I mean? Last men went home and got a taxi at half-time and went home, and Oisin went out and scored 1-2, 1-3, scored a goal through Davy Needle. You know what I mean? Darrell Shea still complains he should have took him out, but another day's work. But no, yeah, it can go either way, and it lifts the team then. You know what I mean? So,
Joe, can you quite believe it's been 15 years since Armagh have been in a provincial final? That was for Mana, and it went to a replay and all.
Yeah, I had 4 sons played that day in the final.
Which is amazing. Actually, what was that like for you as a father watching on?
It's great, but you know there's awful pressure on the boys. You know, you can win All-Ireland for everybody else's child, but you can't win it for your own. That's just the GAA way. But yeah, it's been too long. You know what I mean? There again, Ulster's not hard. You know what I mean? You really, really have to be up for the first game. And when it was straight knockout, you know, I think you're better sometimes that you're up for it and you have to be up for it. But now with these 2 or 3 games, you get back in, and you know, everybody's head is different. And if you have 2 or 3 boys with their head thinking, I'm sure if we lose, you know, we have a chance of getting back in. But it's harder to get back in.
And like when you think that last week the Munster final and the Connacht final were on, the teams that won those and are going into the All-Ireland series, or even the teams that lost as well, all 4 of those teams, they even have an extra week on the teams that are playing this weekend. So straight away going into the All-Ireland series, which is a different day's work, I know, because it's all about the Ulster final. But like you're at a disadvantage straight away in terms of the amount of time you have to prepare. Yeah,
and if somebody picks up a small injury, you know, an dead leg, a week makes an awful difference. But there should be the championship matches are so important. There should be 2 weeks between every round, one way or the other. They shouldn't be forcing it through. And you know, they're trying to get it over early. It suits the clubs. Wait a second. I think this whole process hasn't suited the clubs. But you know, rushing it for the matter of a week or 2 more, give them the proper break. We are amateurs. We behave like professionals. But why force them? Like 5-6 matches in a row is a lot of stuff for boys that have to go home and do a bit of work, or you know, it's hard. And if you get that wee niggle, you're trying to save yourself in training. You're trying not to show that you have a bit of a knock, because you want to play the following week. 2 weeks is ideal, and we should have kept it religiously to every 2 weeks.
Is there any particular matchups?
Could have mixed it up.
Are there any matchups you're looking forward to in Derry against Armagh this weekend?
There's a lot. In fairness to the Derry management and listening to the Derry players seem comfortable no matter where they are on the field. And listening to Michael Murphy, who I think now is the best pundit in the game. Brilliant. I think he simplifies things. A pundit's job is to let the people on the street or those watching on TV know what's happening and what way the game is going. And he tells you things that doesn't jump out at you. And the fact that he was able to simplify and say, wait a second, Derry have targeted 2 of their best forwards to get them into the defence, to make them look vulnerable and make us look good. And they got 1-3 from those 2 things. You know, and that's not being critical of the two great forwards. Conor McMahon is one of the best forwards. But, you know, I mean, somebody else isn't working hard enough when you're putting that responsibility on a man that isn't. You know, I think there's all out zone defence, and you know, a lot of boys mark space and don't see the man with the ball is always the danger man, and if I miss him, it's up to somebody else to get to him and get him stopped. So you know, I mean,
yeah. It's funny you say about Murphy there, Joe. I'd say one of the main reasons Murphy noticed that in particular is because Derry would have targeted him last year as well. I remember when Rodgers put him on the back foot, and it was almost like when Philly marked Gooch in that 15 final and decided this lad's an unbelievable forward. I'm going to make him defend for nearly the whole game, like, you know.
Yeah, but you know, that's up to the other players. Somebody else should take up Brendan Rodgers for Michael Murphy. If Michael Murphy had to stay at full forward, Derry or Donegal would have won that match. It's when he went out of the game, the fear for Derry went out of the game, that they had them playing on their rules. And that's why I hope this weekend that the likes of Rian, Andrew Murnahan and Conor Talbot, if they're playing, hopefully they'll all be playing, that they will stay inside the opposing 50. And that leaves 12 men behind the ball inside their 50. If we can't get a hand on somebody, or if the goal's on, you know, Sean O'Neill used to say, if the house is down, take them down. You know, I mean, give away free. You better do that than open up a goal play. But there's 12 men behind the ball inside the 50. Somebody's not working hard enough. And by the way, if you leave those 3 men up and they're full back, they have to leave 3 men with them. And the goalkeeper mightn't be as keen at coming out. If he comes out to the middle of the field and went for a ball with Rian O'Neill at centre half forward, you know who's going to win that ball. Yeah. And the one them defenders will not want is space. And there's going to be space up there if Derry do what they do all the time, an all-out attack. You got to take the chance. You win. A ball goes wide, or they get a score. Quick kick out, bang! You're in there. 30-yard line.
Yes, Joe. I can't imagine what you were like in the dressing room because you're there. You're the second you're talking about Armagh, your blood pressure is going off. It's a small man.
But I love to see the game played well. Yeah. And some you'll be this. What took me here? And then you'll see somebody winning a ball, beating a man. Instead of looking around and saying, can I go forward now? You know, I mean, that's what they're actually doing. And somebody puts up the hand, oh, you know what's going to happen now. They're all going to start it all over again. You know what I mean? Yeah. Playing off the cuff is what made great players. Great players all here in both sports. It's what they did in a situation that they shouldn't have done it. They won a game. It was inspirational. It changed the history of a club or a county for all time because of what they done. You know what I mean? Brilliant. Brilliant.
Can I just ask you, Joe? You mentioned there about someone else should attract Brendan Rodgers for Murphy. Would you have had many times throughout your managerial career where you have different rules for certain players? Rules like where, just say you have Oisín McConville and say, Oisín, we don't want you making these silly runs back in defence or anything like that. We want you up here. Would there be many different players that you would have had certain rules for, shall we say?
Well, it's not certain rules. I didn't make the rule, but you didn't like going to the gym. But Oisín's work rate was unbelievable. For a fella that was late, you would see him tackling back. Good players see danger and know what to do. I think we become a wee bit too robotic and we forget what we should be doing to win the game instead of the game plan's great until something goes wrong. Somebody slips, misses a tackle. Well, I stay with this man because I don't want him to give my man the ball. Go and get to him. The nearest man, go and get to him. Or somebody come back that is within the vicinity. You know what I mean? I think we make it very hard for ourselves sometimes. It's simple. The man with the ball is the danger man. Let him be coming out of the defence or coming out or breaking the lane to get a score. He's the man that has to be the pressure put on. And the first thing you do, you know, is stop him. You get in front and you stop him. And if he can't get past you, there's only one way he can go, and that's back the way. So if he goes back, you have somebody else coming in. And Tyrone were brilliant at that. When they got somebody stopped, they smothered you, and then they had you. But be alert, see where the danger is, and always cover your teammate. You hear so many boys saying now, Jesus, I was waiting for the help. It's my fault, but I'm waiting for the help. It's the game.
It does allow a bit of a cop-out. Do you know, in terms of Rian O'Neill, at what stage, you know, because obviously you would have known him from Crossmaglen early days. At what stage did you know, geez, we have a bit of a talent on our hands here?
About 12 or 13.
Yeah? What were you seeing?
Oh, yeah. He was just at that natural balance that he laid it over the ground. He could catch the ball. He could check it. Like, this is a lad that kicked the ball, and his brothers, they kicked the ball up and down the street in their own yard or on the field here every day of the week, 7 days a week. And you'd go to matches and their eyes was glued on the match. They went running around messing like some kids do at a young age. They were totally enhancing the game and watching some player that they wanted to replicate when they went home or when they played. But no, he was just a natural player that you could see. Like he has everything. There's very few players could play centre half back, midfield, centre half forward, or any one of the 6 forward positions, and Rian can do that. Unfortunately, at times, because then you become when you're that mobile and you're that versatile, you become the sticky plaster sometimes. Oh, there's a problem in the midfield, full back line, you know, and you put him in everywhere. The likes of him is most feared. Michael Murphy, the Bomber Liston, you name them all. Ronan Clark, inside 30 yards from the goal is where they are most feared. So keep them up there.
And like, if you were to then look at Shane McGuigan on the other side, the threat that he is, I mean, Where would you rank him in terms of some of the best inside forwards going?
Well, he some boys come and have a great year, and then whatever happens, the cockiness stop doing the work or whatever. But Shane this year is probably better than he was last year, and that's what you're looking for. When the ball's coming up, and it used to be the same with Oisín. Oisín mightn't touch the ball for 15 minutes, but every time the ball would come, he'd say, "Give it to me, give it to me." There's no hiding places with these good forwards. They want the ball all the time. They want to score every score. They'll let it be free kicks or whatever. Or as far as his work rate at tackling, he reminds me of Oisín that way, that he comes back all the time and he'll help out. But that's what they do. But when it matters most and the pressure's on, you want somebody to take that kick or go for the score. Like Derry last year at times, everything that got inside 20 yards, they were scoring goals. It was just bang, 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 bang. So they are ruthless in their finishing. And that's one of the worries you'd have this weekend.
So, like last year, one of the things I would have said about Derry was that, especially in the game against Galway in the All-Ireland semi-final, number one, they were afraid to drop it into the mixer, and the Galway goalie had looked a little bit shaky in the game beforehand. And the other thing also was, Oran Lynch seemed to be the only one with the nerve to take on a shot. They weren't going over, but he was like, they were refusing shots. Whereas this year against Monaghan in particular, there was lads popping him over from 45 yards, no bother. Conor Glass, Paul Cassidy. So would you say that they've developed in terms of shooting from distance?
Oh, without a doubt. The goal chances are not going to come the same way every week. And then the frustration sets in that you go so far, the ball's overturned and you keep going back. But if you can pop it out, and they have men comfortable hitting the ball from 40, 50 yards, well, that's like the opposing defences. What do? We have to push out. You push out, you open the space so they can pop it in and the goal chances will reappear. But if you're attacking and looking for goals and they're not coming and they're hitting you on the break and getting a few scores, that's when the frustration and you're looking at defeat then.
And where will this game be won, do you reckon, and who will win it?
Wait a second, that's a good question. There's one thing that's sort of jumping out of me. This Derry team players have won All-Ireland Minor, Ulster and All-Ireland Minor. They've won under 20. They've won Ulster Club Championships and the senior and club. The club was beaten early in an All-Ireland Club final early in the year. We don't have anybody on our team that played in big matches like that. And that's the confidence and the belief you get from playing in those big matches. You're able to cope with them. You're equal or better than the teams that you're playing. And that's the only worry that I have, that in the heat of the moment, if we don't do things right, will we lose our composure or will we stand up and say, right, this is our day? And wait a second, I'm not saying that, but when you have players who've gone through and have a winning mentality together, a lot of those boys have come through together and have won all those trophies and played in Croke Park and won big games. That's the only worry I'd have. And the second thing is round the middle of the field, that Derry, are comfortable in that space, and their defence must be okay when they can take Rodgers out to the middle of the field. But again, on the negative side for Derry, Monaghan opened them up. There's not a team in Ireland good under the high ball, and we don't. Now, to kick it in straight after a very slow and laborious attack, it doesn't work because there's too many bodies in there. But if you can get it in there when there's 2v2, when you break from our half-back line to their half and just lob a couple in, then you need to have men in there. And sometimes we don't have men in there. We got to leave 3 men up today on Sunday, inside their 50. Say Rian, Murnahan and Turbot. Those 3 men. Turbot coming off the shoulder. But if we get it into them 2v2, there'll only be one winner. You know what I mean? So that's when we can open them up. But their strengths is their comfortability with each other, targeting people, like they did a couple of weeks ago, and their scoring power when they get into the right positions.
Michael, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, do you think, Joe, just what you mentioned about the high ball there, do you think that's actually like that we could go back to the future a small bit and that teams aren't maybe working on that as much, that if it's played correctly, if it's that lovely diagonal ball played at speed when the defence isn't set up, that there's still plenty of hay to be made in that regard?
Well, without a doubt. But the only way that works is if you get the ball out early. And you won't get it out early unless you've left 2 or 3 men up the field. Yeah. Some managers going to have to be brave and take it and say, here, boys, this is what we're going to do. The players are going to have to fall in and believe. And all it takes is to win one match doing that. And the belief in your team will turn overnight.
If you won an All-Ireland doing that, Joe, everyone would be doing it the year after.
But wait a second. Somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to. And that means that you sort of work out how to defend without 15 men, pushing up. All the goalkeepers are pushing up now behind the defenders to block us all in. But if we leave 3 men in the forward line, they have to leave 3 back. They're not. Wait a second. One score will end all that. And the one thing defenders do not want is space. Now, I come out of our defence and I get the ball in the wing. I look up and there's nobody there. The hand goes up. But I come out of, if I can break the lane and hit a 50-yard pass down right or left wing, and we have 2 or 3 men up there, panic. Just panic. I'm telling you, the manager, one score doing that, and they'll go back. So then you're not under the same pressure coming out with the ball. And all you have to do is hit it 50 yards either wing. And your man knows where it's going, and he's going to be out in front.
Do you like Ethan Rafferty? Do you like the Ethan Rafferty tactic?
That's a no, Joe. There's no.
Talked about Wiki bum time. Wiki bum time ever he gets. Wait a second. He puts fear into the opposition. But a big man like him can be stopped. An acute tackler who breaks the ball off him and the house is down. He scores the odd point. He should be playing midfield. He can catch a ball with anybody. That's right. I would love to see him out midfield. But to answer the question, I'd be worried with goalkeepers coming out doing that.
Should cost Derry last year.
That's right. All it takes is one chance, and the harm's done.
Would you have let Benny Tierney out there?
Well, knowing Benny, the edge of the square was the limit.
So, Joe, in a word, who's going to win this weekend?
I think it'll be very close. I'm hoping the bookies will tell you Derry's favourites, but I'm hoping that we can continue on our upward spiral. I think there's goals in us now which weren't coming during the league, and I think the further we go, the better we're going to get. It'll be tight, but I think there'll only be a point or two in this, and hopefully it'll be Armagh.
Myself and Michael.
Experts there. I'm doing a thing for my son for his school. They use 2 experts. What do you think the scores are going to be? Connor or Shane, you go first there.
Lovely. Come on, Joe, Mike.
In Armagh, Derry this weekend?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with...
I won't go on Facebook afterwards, but
I'm going to go Armagh 2-9, Derry 1-8. I'll try and keep you sweet by saying Armagh will win.
Shane, come on, 2-9 to 1-8.
Look, you have your chance there.
Every man's entitled to his opinion.
Every man's entitled to his opinion, Joe, even if it's blatantly wrong.
Right.
I'll go with Derry 115, Armagh 113. And how much, whatever this costs, Joe, I'll revolute you on a couple of euro after, all right?
That's all right. Don't worry. I put down 212 Armagh, 114 Derry. So.
Good man. Okay.
Right. Joe.
Before I give it to the son, okay? I'll grab it.
Joe, the other final then between Dublin and Louth. We were talking beforehand. Mickey Harte I think he's just 2 years. Is he 2 years older than you? I think.
I'm 60. Yeah, he could be 77.
He's 71. So what do you think it's great to see a guy who's 71 years of age? He's still out there getting it done, and obviously made huge progress at Louth in the last couple of years.
He's done a great job at Louth. Because Louth was one of those teams that was on a downward spiral and looked like they didn't come out. I know his strength and conditioning coach, Kieran Sloan, and I had him with me with Cross, and I had him with Ulster, and I had him with the Irish team, and I congratulated him on the physique and the fitness levels of the Louth. If you look at them running, they're like the top teams in the country. So all the hard work has been done by Mickey's backroom team, and Mickey's put belief into them. They were with Dublin for long times. I think the National League final will do that. I've done them the world of good. Now Dublin's going to go to the next level, but hopefully Louth can stay in the game as long as possible. They have some great young players. they're fit, they're determined, they believe in what they're doing. So I think it could be one of a better Leinster finals that we've had over the last 15 years.
And
very boring.
It's 50 years since Louth beat Dublin in the Leinster final, beat them at all in championship. And there was a manager. The manager then was Jimmy Mulroy. And if it's gonna happen this weekend, Sam Mulroy is going to have to get it done. How highly do you rate him?
Oh, wait a second. For anybody to be involved in Gaelic football, you know, at this level and the effort you have to put in, you have to admire. But to be involved at this stage of the year, you know, when there's a trophy at stake, you know, it's an unbelievable position to be in.
Yeah. Michael, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, Sam Mulroy's top class forward. It's funny Joe was saying there about their physique and that. I believe he's friendly enough with Tom Morrissey and Sean Finn. So that would explain maybe even the Limerick hurlers, that would explain maybe his kind of change in physique. But just on your battles with Mickey Harte down through the years, Joe, it's obviously 20 years since he met in an All-Ireland final as well. You know, he's some great battles in Ulster finals, even up in Croke Park. Like, isn't it phenomenal to see a guy still going at this stage of the day? Like, he obviously lives and breathes it. Like, he's still going to take on a new project, even at, what was he, 68, 69 when he took on this new project, and to give it the same energy as he gave Tyrone before that.
Like, in fairness, when he stepped down from Tyrone, there's a lot of bigger counties, and that's no disrespect to Louth. But within a week, Mickey, they come looking at him. They were cute to get in first, and he made up his mind a week after he left Tyrone, which, you know, I was in management for 20 years with the club, you know, and we had success, and then with the county, and then was at Ulster, and then I was exhausted. I've had a few offers over the last 10 years to go. I said, wait a second, boys, I can't give the commitment, or I haven't the same drive. Well, I couldn't manage. Well, bar Galway, but there was a bit of Galway blood in me. I couldn't have went anywhere else, and that's being honest, because you can't feel the same, you know, as the players and the supporters feel, because you're not part. You can do all the good work, but I feel you have to be part of it, and that's why I didn't go to other places. But the main reason was I hadn't that drive to keep me going. But the players are no mugs. If you turn up and you're there and you're working and you're not as driven as them or more driven than them, they catch on to you, and you know you shouldn't be there. So no, fair play to them. Mickey is driven, and his counterpart with him there,
Gavin Devlin.
Gavin, I reckon, is doing a great job behind the scenes. So he's lucky that has a right-hand man like that on his shoulder that knows what he wants and knows how to get it across as well. So they're a good combination together, in fairness to them. And there's a lot of good reports coming out of it, Gavin, as well.
What do you make of Dublin this year, and maybe the last couple of years? They're not the same team, are they, Joe?
No, and it couldn't be. It was impossible. You know, you get a group of players through, and the longevity of most of those players, you know, was an example to the rest of the country that they were able to keep that drive, that hunger. But in fairness, they always had something to go for. You know, the first one was to win the first All-Ireland, to get that monkey off the back, that, you know, Dublin were an easy touch for everybody in the country. And at one stage you would have said yes, that they hadn't got what it took, they hadn't the battle or whatever it was. And then they won the first on the Pat Gilroy. And then they wanted to win 3 in a row. And nobody in Dublin ever spoke about it. I used to do a few days before, and I used to bring up with the 5 in a row just to throw it out there, because I knew Dublin did not want to talk about 5 in a row, and it was going to be more pressure on them, you know. So, but they coped with all those things. They had the players, and they had players on the lane. And in fairness, I don't know how they kept them all happy. You know, they talk about the in-house matches and all these things, but the silverware at the end of the day was the one thing: to be the best, to do what no other team ever done. And I know that they probably enjoyed doing something that Kerry didn't do, winning the 5 in a row. Now, if Dublin could win the All-Ireland this year, 9 All-Irelands in Dublin, not in Kerry, that won't go down well.
No, it definitely won't.
That's the motivation, though, isn't it? Like, that's
correct.
The motivation for a lot of them. Like, there's no, like, you telling me Cluxton, James McCarthy, etc. would have came back if there wasn't a chance of doing something that no one's ever done, you know?
So there always is a wee carrot there somewhere, you don't find out about it later. But that was the one that kept them going, the 5 in a row, to win the 3 and then the 5. And now to be the first players in Ireland to have 9 All-Ireland football medals. So all the great things that all the Kerry did, the Jackos and Spillane and Paudi and Armagh and all the boys, you know, things change, things move on. You got to match it now. Who's going to come and do what they done?
What do you make of Stephen Cluxton being thrown back into the goals?
I thought it was a peculiar one. You know, you never know what's going on in any county. Was there problems? Was the management not happy? Did the Feely, you know, I think one of the main reasons he was took back, it's what he does behind the scenes, not actually what he does on the field, which he's impeccable in his approach and the way he plays. But it's the strength he gives the team that maybe he is struggling over this last couple of years since he left, and confidence to know that he's there, he's the leader behind the scenes. Like, he wouldn't do it publicly, but the reckon in the changing room and everything, you know, even when the game's over, he's the boy with the brush and the shovel cleaning up the dressing room. Simple. Wouldn't, you know, that you wouldn't, and boys wouldn't expect themselves to do. We're here to play. We're not here to clear, but the simple things, the small things, Dublin did the perfection, and Cluxton was one of the main men behind all that. So it's peculiar. If it goes wrong, they'll get the blame. But if they win another All-Ireland, he could be a very important part in focusing them and getting them there.
What do you make of seeing some of your old soldiers? Tony McEntee, obviously he was in a kind of final last week. Oisin McConville with Wicklow, Aidan O'Rourke's involved with Donegal. What do you make of watching your old soldiers being involved with county teams this year, and how are they doing?
Remember we talked at the very start about players making the right decisions on the field? You know, those were the type of players. Like Tony Mack was my stick and plaster. You know, Tony Mack could play anywhere, full back to full forward, and play well. He came on the All-Ireland final, touched the ball 5 times, but only got it in his hands once. The 3 toe pokes, a palm down, and a ball that was handed to him, and then he handed it to Geezer at the final. But those 3 balls that he poked away from Kerry players and stopped them getting scores were vital. You know, you or I would bend down and get killed going down for the ball. But he done this toe poke to 10 yards. Aidan O'Rourke, he gave the pass to the championship, the winning score. He got the ball at wing half back and hit it to the outside of Stephen McDonald on the D. You know what I mean? They did the right things at the right time. So those were leaders that we have, the same as Geezer. And those players made the right decisions and led. And Oisín's just Oisín. Oisín was the best footballer I ever managed. Unbelievable. He did. But his longevity, Oisín never missed a challenge match for Cross Midland or Armagh in his life. Played every game, every week, every day. And like, people talk about burnout. You know what I mean? Oisín was unbelievable. And I'm glad now. People wondered why he went to Wicklow. And he was in, I think, with the Mayo boys, or he was going to go in there. Probably Wicklow, looking back, is now better, to go in and cut his teeth. And he's doing a good job. They're not going to win the All-Ireland, but you never know what they might do in the Tailteann Cup. And that would be a target for him to get a run in it and give them a lift. So those 3 boys, in fairness, you know what I mean, they were leaders. Oisín would have been one of the quieter ones in the dressing room. Aidan, Tony Mack had always talk. There's a toughness and a ruthless in Tony that you wouldn't see if you were talking to him. But he's a good reader of the game. You know, he's been about now a while in management. He's successful with the club and fairly successful with Mayo. Unfortunately, didn't get them across the line. But no, very proud of them.
Fair to say you won't be short of future Armagh managers in the next 10 or 15 years anyway.
Well, it's getting them in. Maybe if this man wins this one, hey, well, he could be there for another few years. But no, in fairness to them, wait a second, you have to be, you have to be half mad to take on a management job now, because it just takes over your life. And I suppose the boys are married now and have kids, and you know, I suppose they want their kids. Like, I was so lucky with my kids; they were at a good age when we won the All-Ireland. Like, they're all in their late teens. Stephen's 40 now, so late teens. So they had a good understanding of what was happening, and they were playing for Cross, and they loved the game. So the enjoyment they got out of it, and that was one of the things for me, that my family could enjoy the big days in Croke Park. I remember Patricia telling me that the day of the All-Ireland was a semi-final Dublin, and one or two of our sisters were sitting beside her, and the 5 boys were sitting in a row this way. And you know the way you'd be sitting and you'd be tapping your toes. Well, Patricia looked across and seeing the 5 boys tapping the toes at the same time. Some sort of a ritual. The boys were there, and you have to be in it to know it.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Just then this, like a couple of years ago, I remember there was an article where you were talking about, I think it was like Pat Spillane and Colin O'Rourke were maybe just reviewing some game or other, and some player was being referred to as being slower than, you know, one of the pundits' grannies or whatever. Like, do you find it interesting? Yeah, do you find it interesting now watching like Colin O'Rourke now? He's seen what it's like on the other side and the difficulties he's having with Meath.
Wait a second. I've been in sport a long time, and I've managed, and I've done a wee bit of punditry. I hate to see anybody taking the piss of players, and that's what they were literally doing, making a laugh of a young lad. It was Francie Belly at the time. There was other players, you know, totally unfair. You know, I remember when somebody was slagging some of the Spillans, Pat took the ump on that. You know, that's not what they're there for. A pundit is there to enlighten, help players and the public on what's happening on the field and how they think they could do it better, not trying to degrade people who's given their life to the sport. You know what I mean? So, no, that used to annoy me now. You know, in fairness, his right hand mate, Joe, used to do the same. But, you know, it's not fair. It's not fair. These boys, I remember who was it? Mark Dwyer up in Kerry, up in Kildare, and he took a roasting at times too. Totally unfair. He couldn't get playing for Kerry. That was life. He came up to Kildare and got playing, did a good job. So give the fella credit for it. Right? They didn't win in All-Ireland. You know, everybody can't win the All-Ireland. We're not all Kerrys or Dublins. But I tell you, can we, like, you look at Mayo. I've got so much enjoyment as a neutral out of Mayo the last 15 years. And I know Lee and a few of the boys well, and Ed. You know, I thank them so much for what they give to the GAA. They made the last 15 years a great period in our games because of the effort that they put in to match probably the greatest team that played Gaelic football over the last 100 years. Without Mayo, that wouldn't have happened. And they lost, but I tell you what, they give us some enjoyment. So give them credit.
Yeah, that sort of thing, Joe, just, you know, nearly having a go at a county or having a go at players just for the sake of it and attacking their personality, attacking their character. Like, that's not what we're in. We're not in this for that. Like, you know what I mean?
Do on to him what you think would like be done to you, and you wouldn't like it if it was said about your family. So no, cut that out, and you know, let's enjoy what we have. All the games aren't brilliant, but every now and again, you know, you go to a match sometime, let it be an underage match or a senior match, a team you haven't seen in a while. You know, I remember when Bernard Brogan was starting off, and this young lad went down the wing in front of me in Croke Park. You know, this is the makings of a great player, and he turned out to be a great player. And there's loads of them throughout the country. I remember I used to be in charge of the quick one here. I was in charge of the Railway Cup team for a few years, and it's one of the biggest mistakes the GAA ever made, not continuing with it. They put it in venues that you wouldn't get a dog and a cat to walk into. The venue was that bad. I remember taking a Leinster team to Crossman End here on a wet Saturday, and we had 5,000 people. 5,000 people. If it had to be a dry day on a Sunday, we would have got 7,000 or 8,000. So we could have got the people there, but we played a Railway Cup final in Armagh against Munster. And the full forward line was David Tubridy, a Limerick man and a Waterford man. I can't, excuse my ignorance, but I don't remember the two boys. But the three boys gave an exhibition that day, and we were beaten up to injury time when one of the McGee's went up and scored a goal in injury time, and we won by a point. And you know what? I was nearly sorry that we won afterwards. That those three players from smaller counties come and give an exhibition against the best we had in Ulster and didn't win a medal. They haven't won a Munster title. They haven't won a National League. And that medal would have been treasured in their households. Their family, their county would have been great. Three great players. Like David Tubridy, one of the best forwards in the country.
Ian Ryan from Limerick, I'd say it was, Joe. Ian Ryan, I'd say, from Limerick, yeah. Not sure who the Waterford fella was.
Who else was there? Limerick, Waterford, and Clare. We couldn't handle them. They were brilliant. You know what I mean? And wait a second. It's a pity those boys don't be... And that's why the Tailteann Cup is good, because it's something that players from lesser counties have a chance of winning and playing in Croke Park and giving their supporters days out. So, yeah, there's good players everywhere.
Joe, you've been brilliant with your time, but just a final question for you, if you don't mind. Would you be able to pick your favourite for both the Tailteann Cup and the All-Ireland?
Which is, I need to look at who's in it. Down Cavan, Fermanagh will be the three for the Tailteann. Down Cavan or Fermanagh. Down are scoring goals and a very young team. And there could be dangers in that. Cavan, I was more worried about the Cavan game than I was about the Down match for Armagh's point of view. I thought that they're the ones that could have topped us. and they missed a lot of chances on. They did kick 16 wides. And Fermanagh were going well up to the game against Derry. They were scoring. The balance of the team looked good. They were working hard. They were winning matches you didn't think they were going to win. So those three maybe for the Tailteann Cup. So I picked three other teams. That's very biased.
Yeah, that pro-Ulster bias that we keep hearing about.
I'll stick with my old buddy Patrick Jason Galway. The Galway blood coming out of me.
Yeah.
Sorry, James McCarthy. It won't be named this year. Dublin have to improve a fair bit now. Dublin have to improve. They're not. It's not flowing yet. Paul Flynn said there'll be a different team when they get to the last 8. They'll have to improve. But no, I think on the whole, I think Galway are well balanced. If they can keep the boys injury free for the next couple of months, I think that those will be the ones that hopefully could get it over the line.
Was that Waterford player Brian Wall, by the way?
Have me. If I went in through this drawer here, I'd dig it out somewhere.
We'll wait for it.
If I get it, I'll send it over to you. I'll send you on a picture of the program.
Well, Joe, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it, enjoyed it, and the viewers have loved it. So, and enjoy the Ulster final.
Oh, I have it in writing, boys.
Good man, Joe. I'll send you on the €4. I'll revolute you on €4. All right, good man. Thanks, Joe.
Geez, Joe was absolutely brilliant there, and the comments were flying in about how much people enjoyed listening to him there. So that was brilliant stuff. Do you know, it was great to have those games previewed. We didn't finish off the hurling, so we'll just go back a little bit. Kildare against Down. I mean, both teams are not going well this year, so they'll both be putting Everton into this one. Kerry against Laois as well. So you obviously watched last week. Offaly play against, or sorry, was it the week before? Offaly
no, it was last weekend, yeah.
It was last weekend. So you saw Offaly beat Kerry, and I suppose you're well aware of Laois as well, a team that G took down in the first round as well. Are Laois starting to build up a little bit of momentum? Will they be fancying themselves here?
They probably are. They probably fancy themselves to get over. Kerry, even on away soil. But again, it's the sole situation of where you're relying on results elsewhere, relying on Offaly to do Laois a favour. Like, Jesus, like not his match. That doesn't really happen.
You wouldn't give them the steam off your.
No, exactly. I believe Dan Shannon and Eamon Jackman, their two coaches as well, are both suspended for a month. They weren't on the sideline last weekend, and I don't think they'll be on the sideline this weekend. All stems back to the Carlow game. I don't exactly know what happened there, but they've left it out of their hands. And like, Jesus, Shane, for Laois to fall from Liam McCarthy.
And they were 7 or 8 up against Carlow in that game, weren't they?
Oh, that's turned their season around, and it's given Carlow a lifeline. At least won that game. It would be in their own hands going into this weekend, whereas it's not now. I think the most likely scenario, and the highly likely scenario, is that Carlow probably edge Offaly by a couple of points, and they play each other again in the final. But should Offaly, the only thing I say about that is Offaly put a fairly experimental team out against Laois in the last round of the Walsh Cup this year. Weren't expected to do anything. Ended up winning by a point or drawing. I can't remember. I think it was they won by a point, and that meant Laois weren't into the Walsh Cup final after. And maybe Offaly will produce something, but the most likely scenario is a Carlow and Offaly final again.
You don't want Offaly to produce. You want to see Offaly or Laois being stitched up here, don't you?
I'd love to see. I tell you what, I'd love to see an unbeaten season between League and Joe McDonagh. If they're able to win 30 or be unbeaten in 13 games, it'd be unbelievable.
Don't try and change the narrative on me here.
The Joe McDonagh Cup winners play the third place in Leinster. So we were talking about that the last day, and the runners-up play the third place in Munster. So if it was like Carlow or Offaly would fancy their chances of hopping off whoever is third in Leinster. So it's going to be interesting to see how it's played out. And there's no problems with recovery or anything like that. They're not playing the week after the Joe McDonagh either. I think it's actually 3 weeks this year. So there's a hell of a lot to play for over the next while.
If Tip don't get out of Munster, Offaly will be in the All-Ireland series longer than Tip this year, and you'll be fairly cock of the walk if that happens.
Shane, Offaly could be in the championship longer than Limerick. You just don't know. Like, you do not know. Like, it's mad to say it. That weekend of the 27th, the weekend of the McDonagh Cup final, and the final weekend in Munster and Leinster, there's going to be some amount of jiggery-pokery there, but some big teams are going to lose out.
Yeah, well, do you know what? Jiggery-pokery, that's another good one. But I think you're being disingenuous about the Laois and Offaly thing. You want to see Laois out of this, don't you? You're disingenuous. And you hate disingenuity.
I wouldn't have much time for Laois or Westmeath now. That's been honest with you. Funny enough, because Westmeath were never really a threat hurling wise growing up, I would always follow Westmeath hurling and hope that they're going to do well. But I wouldn't be a fan of Westmeath football. Whereas with Laois, wouldn't be a big fan of either their footballers or hurlers when they're coming up against us.
Okay, Christy Ring Cup this weekend. Meath against Tyrone, Sligo, Mayo, Londonderry. I'll just read out the fixtures then for the other two competitions. Nicky Rackard round 4. Fermanagh will meet Armagh, Donegal, Louth and Wicklow, Roscommon. Finally then Lorimar round 4. Longford against Cavan, Warwickshire against Leitrim and Lancashire against Monaghan. There's a fair old feast of games there across the different levels.
There is, yeah. The record is very interesting because there are 3 different teams in the hunt. I think Donegal, Wicklow and Roscommon are all in the hunt there. And the Ring, obviously, London have been the team of the Christy Ring Cup probably so far, beating Meath. And Meath play Tyrone this weekend, Sligo, Mayo, Londonderry. Yeah, London look to have one foot in the final already.
Yeah, they definitely do. So there's a couple other things we wanted to touch on, one of which included the Munster Minor Hurling Championship final. So first minor title since 2011 for Clare there, 119 to 115 against Cork. Brilliant result. And I suppose it's worth bringing up this tweet from Derek Lynch, who I mentioned earlier from Clare FM. It's just a small thing, but significant all the same. It's great to see our flagship underage sides wearing the new Clare jerseys. For years, they were lining out in hand-me-downs and a mix and match of sets. It's symptomatic of the new standards being set from the top. I mean, we're only talking July 2021 when the Clare Miners were beaten by 40 points by Cork. What a change we've seen.
Yeah, you know, people say, like, after a result like that, like, oh, that'll put you back for 10 years. It doesn't. I think that result made people around Clare realise, okay, we need to get our SH1T in order here and get the thing moving. They got a lot of really good lads back involved. Donald Maloney was involved with that minor team. Like, when you see a guy who's joint managed the Clare senior hurlers and joint managed under 21 All-Ireland winning teams and, you know, Munster minor winning teams, getting back involved, going back through the conveyor belt again, that's huge. They've got a lot of really good guys involved from chatting to people on the ground in there. And that was a really good win the other night. They were obviously beaten in the Munster final last year. We beat them by a couple of scores in the All-Ireland semi-final. But yeah, there was a couple of lads in particular, and the cornerback, Owen Gunning, who's, like you see from the picture there, he's only a small, slight little fella, but the speed of him, he accelerated up the pitch at one stage and then had the coolness to kind of chirk back and score off his left-hand side. Really, really good player, and fairly comprehensive win. And just going through the last Clare team that won a Munster minor in 2011, I think Paul Kinnerk was coach actually, and Donald Maloney and Jerry O'Connor were managers. Tony Kelly, Peter Duggan, Ever Quilligan, Colin Galvin, Shane O'Donnell, and the Waterford team they beat had Jamie Barron at cornerback, would you believe? Shane McNulty, Jake Dillon, Ian Kenny, Colin Dunford and Stephen Bennett. So, like, a good sign that potentially Clare could bring through a good few boys to senior levels over the next while.
Yeah, Shane Brophy of
That's the man.
Probably Gary Herney was the Waterford footballer, yeah. Also, Tony Considine passes on his apologies there. He had a bit of a family emergency, so he says he hopes to come on again soon. So Clare beating Tipperary in the Munster Under-20 semi-final. Jesus, I'm talking a bit too much about Clare positivity here, and I'm not liking it, I'll be honest. So they're going to meet Cork in the Under-20 final, and will Adam Hogan be available? Obviously, we know Owen Downey won't. I can't see how Adam Hogan will be if he's involved with the seniors. The final is next Monday, which is 2 days after the Clare-Waterford game. Now, you talked about Clare coming from losing by 40 points to 2 years later winning that Munster minor title. Offaly, obviously, you were in the doldrums for a long, long time. Back into a Leinster Under-20 final now after a 119 to 212 win over Dublin. Like, first time in the Leinster Under-20 final for 23 years next Wednesday night. It's great stuff, eh?
Yeah.
And without Adam Screeney.
Yeah, we were in it in 16. We haven't won it since 2000. Yeah, great to be back there. And we're playing Wexford. Wexford had a fine win against Kilkenny, but it's like it's a 50-50 game. And Offaly did that last night without Adam Screeney, last year's minor hurler of the year, without Brecon Kavanagh as well. Really good wing back. Probably, if you're say their top 5 players, they're probably both in the top 5. So we're missing both of those lads. I think Leo O'Connor said that he's hoping that both will be available for the final next Wednesday night. Not sure where that'll be. Could be Nolan Park, maybe Portlaoise either as well. But Charlie Mitchell got a goal after 38 minutes. He whipped on a ball in the square and it went underneath the net. So in fairness, at least the 2 umpires were vigilant enough to see that the ball had gone straight through or whatever. But they were the better team throughout. Played with the win in the first half. Were 12 points to 1-4 up at half time. I was kind of thinking, yeah, it is a 5-point breeze. Dublin hit 3 points in a row within about 2 minutes of the restart. And it looked like, geez, Dublin are going to make a big charge here, be able to score from distance with the wind at their backs. But Offaly got a couple of scores then, and Mitchell got his goal and kind of had them at arm's length thereafter. Dublin got a late goal in injury time. The Dublin goal in the first half was probably borderline square ball as well. But no, a big win. And that's like the minors from last year is one thing, but they're all 17, 18. There's a couple of other lads along with that wouldn't have been on the minors last year. Sam Burke, centre back, really good. Mark Troy in goals. Charlie Mitchell as well, who's involved with the seniors. So yeah, no, it's a good sign now. Good sign. And when you just see a crop and you see, what Joe was talking there about seeing Bernard Brogan soloing up the sideline in Croke Park and thinking this lad's a bit different. This crop just look a little bit different. They don't really seem to have any fear of playing against any team. And as Leo O'Connor said last night, they just always seem to deliver on the big occasion. And that's really heartening for the future.
So it's not just the case that you had one good crop in the minors. You've got more than just the one good crop. So you can feel like in the next 5 years, there should be a lot of talent coming on stream for the seniors.
Yeah, well, just there's a question there from Boom Boom 43. He just asked, was there many of last year's minor team playing the other night? Interestingly, Tip had only one starter under 20 from last year's minor team, which I noticed and I thought that was interesting. So like Mark Troy in goals wasn't on the minor team last year. Pat Taff was there. James Matton, cornerback, was there. Fullback Ben Miller from my own club, he was overage last year. Luke Watkins was overage. Sam Burke was overage. Terraguinan was minor. Collie Spain was overage. Cottle King was overage. Like that's the fair whack of lads there that weren't on the team. And they got Cormac Egan back from the footballers as well. He was overage for minor there. So it's probably about half and half, I'd say, which is a great sign. And it's, by all accounts, it's really difficult to get into the match day 26. And I'm looking at lads outside of the match day 26 and I'm thinking, how's he not on the squad? And that can only be a good thing.
And how good can Cormac Egan be lured over to the hurling side? I mean, last year with the UCD freshers, we didn't have him available, and he would have been. Now, he wouldn't have made up the difference in terms of playing the UL team that had Cathal O'Neill and Conor Coughlin, but I presume he's a very, very good hurler and would be a serious prospect.
Yeah, he's probably not the most natural hurler, but he had him out centre forward last night. He's such a workhorse. He's one of these lads that just gets his hurling, gets his body in, gets his hand in. He wasn't on a particularly huge amount of ball last night, but he made one dart and run, had a goal chance, the ball hopped and Charlie Mitchell pulled it into the net, so he's probably not maybe, as natural a player maybe up front as a screeny or someone like that, but sure, you don't need all the same type of forwards. You need different types of players, and he definitely offers something a bit different. And the fact that the under-20 footballers are out and he's not involved with the senior footballers, that probably opened the door for him to go in with the hurlers. Like I think it was a couple of days after the footballers were knocked out, and he was back in with the hurlers straight away. And again, like the management aren't afraid to ruffle feathers. They'll do whatever they think is right to try and get results on the board and get the best people involved in the squad, and they've done that.
Yeah, and we have a question in there asking what was the spread of clubs there. So you've got Durrow, Belmont, Burr, Kilcormac, Killahey, Shinrone, Durrow again, Kilcormac, Killahey. You have a nice few players. Carrigan, Riverstown, yeah, again, Durrow, Tullamore, Clara, St. Rynagh's, and a couple of repeating clubs at the top end of the pitch as well. So there is a decent spread there. It's not like it's all from one super club.
No, there is a super club coming though. Kilcormac are going to be so strong. If you look at all minor results, underage results in Offaly, they've hoovered up nearly every title over the last 4 or 5 years.
Your buddy there saying, Andrew Sullivan saying 3 of the starting team last night were minor last year. That does that is very good for you that you've got the minor team last year plus basically a hugely different crop that are also excelling.
Oh, it's hugely encouraging. Obviously, if Screeney and Kavanagh were fit, it would have been 5. But to win a game with only 3 of last year's team is, that's massive. Yeah, very heartening. As I said to you before, you don't want to lose the run of yourself too much. But like Ben Keneally's going to be around for a while at senior level, as is Owen Cattle, as is Oisin Kelly, as is Kieran Burke. So meld
How
all
old's the
those.
likes of Jason Sampson? How old would he be?
30. So like he might get the tail end of his county career, might get a couple of those lads coming in, and it would be crucial to have some experience lads like that leading the way. But when you meld all that together, maybe around 2026, 2027, you're thinking, yeah, we could have a very competitive senior team.
Okay, and then Wexford winning the other game, 2-13 to 118. They scored the last 3 points to get over the line there. Keith Rossiter is managing that team, obviously at Wexford, great. Billy Drennan was out. In terms of the scoring, Keane Byrne, he scored 10 points, 3 of those from play. JJ Twamley scored a goal. Corey Byrne Dunbar, who I think is a real player for the future, he got 3. Michael Dunnan got a couple as well. Grode Dunn hit 1-6 for Kilkenny. Owen O'Brien got the other goal, and Timmy Clifford scored 3. Luke Connellan, who I briefly had with the UCD Freshers last year until he decided to leave the course, he scored a couple of points as well. He's the captain. Is there anything else we haven't touched on? I suppose we'll quickly run through the Tailteann Cup.
Yeah, we're flying through the Tailteann Cup. Obviously, it's the opening weekend. I don't know, the Tailteann Cup. The fact that it's group stages maybe doesn't feel kind of maybe as sexy as last year, if you get me. Do you know what I mean? And there's maybe not a load of the fixtures maybe jumping off the page, but we'll just fly through the games for this weekend. So we've Down against Waterford. That's up in Park Esther. Down would be overwhelming favourites to come through in there. Cavan against Laois. Laois were obviously denied promotion from Division 4, and you're just wondering, like, they conceded a record score to the Dubs in that Leinster quarter-final.
Yeah, they hammered Longford in the challenge recently, though, I know that.
Okay, yeah, you're just kind of, will they be able to bounce back against a Cavan side who are probably still, keen to right the wrong of last year in the final when they had a man sent off. Thomas Galligan was sent off, and things kind of turned against Westmeath. Limerick against Longford as well. A lot of these games, Limerick, Longford, Meath, Tipperary, that's on Saturday evening. Like, Meath are going to be a team that a lot of people are going to have their eyes on in the Tailteann Cup. Like, I don't think it's a big departure to say, like, and Joe Kernan mentioned 3 teams that he thought might win the Tailteann Cup, and Meath didn't come into the conversation. Like, it would be fairly disastrous if they weren't able to get to a final at the very least.
Well, Stephen Poacher, on a regular Poacher and Varley show, he was saying he doesn't see them getting to a final at all.
Yeah, because, if they were able to get to a final and were able to win it, then at least a lot of the talk for next year is Meath are in the All-Ireland Championship before they start off. Maybe it's a little bit of pressure taken off. But if they don't, there's a fair bit of pressure on Colin O'Rourke already, and the mood music in the county wouldn't be particularly good. So if they weren't able to get to a final or potentially win a Tailteann Cup, that'd be fairly disastrous for thinking of historically and within the last 25 years what Meath have done.
Yeah, Limerick Longford, I don't think you've mentioned just yet. So Limerick, they qualified for the All-Ireland qualifiers last year as Munster runners-up. They're in the Tailteann Cup for the first time. Longford lost to Fermanagh by 3 points in their first game last year. Meath against Tipperary. Like, Tipperary have had a lot of injuries, a lot of different issues this year. David Power and family, obviously, they're sort of bereavement this week as well. So I'm sure the Tipperary team will want to go out and sort of do this for him as well. But Meath lost to Offaly in this year's Leinster Championship. Tipperary beat Waterford but lost to Kerry, which was expected enough. Then Wicklow, we were already talking about Oisin McConville with Joe Kernan earlier. They're against Carlow. They meet for the 3rd time this year, having previously clashed in the league, which was 2-10 each, and the first round of the Leinster Championship when Wicklow won by 2-12 to 10 points in Ockram. Antrim against Leitrim. It's interesting, like some of these, like Antrim Leitrim, it's not the sexiest sounding tie, but it could end up being an excellent game of football.
Oh, it could be, actually. There was a load of the games last year just ended up even going to extra time. Was it Sligo and London went to extra time last year? I think it might have even ended up on penalties, did it? Sligo and Leitrim definitely ended up on penalties. So lots of interesting games. Offaly play London at the weekend as well. Offaly be expected to come through that, particularly on home soil. And Fermanagh and Wexford, again, Fermanagh probably favourites there, but you see, you don't exactly know how teams have dealt with the potentially 4 or 5 weeks between knocked out of province, and have they lost players or players, heading off traveling or whatever? What's the kind of music or the mood music within the county? We don't really know. But as regards football, like I'd say the biggest tie of the weekend is nearly the All-Ireland under-20 football final between Sligo and Kildare.
Huge.
I know Kildare won the All-Ireland a couple of years ago with Davy Burke. Sligo don't have too many All-Ireland wins to their name, and they've a serious chance going into this game.
They absolutely do. Okay, that's pretty much it from the show this week. A reminder that we're brought to you by ourstore.ie, which is the official home of merchandise with us. Also, if you want to do a fundraiser for your club, why not bring us to your town? Email events@ourgame.ie, and we'll give you some details on that. That's kind of it, really, isn't it? We've it all said.
All said. Until Monday.
And if you want to get
I have a quiz, Shane. Jesus, I nearly forgot.
Go on, throw it out quick.
It would have been criminal. Really, really quickly. Just going to fire through these. So it's 3 questions, but there are 5 answers. Okay, so you get ready here. Okay.
Okay.
Who refereed? You should definitely know this. Who refereed the 2010 All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship final when Tipperary stopped Kilkenny's drive for 5? You have to know this. So that's the first question. Number 2, who captained Kilkenny to All-Ireland Senior Hurling success in 2014? So who captained Kilkenny to All-Ireland Senior Hurling success in 2014? And the final question, who won the first ever All-Ireland Club Senior Hurling title? Who did they beat and where was it played? So who won the first ever All-Ireland Club Senior Hurling title? Who did they beat and where was it played? I'll just fly through them really quickly again. Who refereed the 2010 All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship final when Tip stopped Kilkenny's drive for 5? Who captained Kilkenny to All-Ireland Senior Hurling success in 2014? And who won the first All-Ireland Club Senior Hurling title? Who did they beat and where was it played? Well, Shane,
I think I'm going to get them all wrong. Honestly, I can't remember who won. I have no idea who the referee was in 2010. I'm going to go with Brian Gavin.
No, incorrect.
I remember who refereed in 2009, though.
Who captained Kilkenny to senior All-Ireland success in 2014? Like, Shano, 2010 is one of the greatest days in your county's history. 2014, albeit, is one of the worst days in the county's history. No, he never captained an All-Ireland winning team. And the last one, who won the first All-Ireland Senior Hurling Club title? Who did they beat and where was it played? You're joking me. What?
Tubberdore. Oh, sorry. All-Ireland Club title. Do you know what I was thinking when I initially thought of the answer to that? 1971, Roscrea. But you know, what I initially thought was, who won the very first All-Ireland when it was represented by clubs?
Okay, well, that's not it.
Was it Tubberdore was the name of the club that was... so who did Roscrea beat? I'm going to go with James Stephens.
No, okay. I'll go through the answers really quickly. So Michael Wadding, who we had on stage in the Rome Moore fundraiser 2 weeks ago.
And we talked about it and everything.
Yeah, refereed the 2010 All-Ireland final. Lester Ryan was the Kilkenny captain and did his speech Oscuelga.
I thought he did it in 2015. That was Joey Holden.
Listen, tip boys have selective memory when things go wrong. And Roscrea beat St. Rhinus, which is only about 20 minutes away, in the first ever All-Ireland Club final, and it was played in Burr. So, Andrew, you were close enough.
Look, Jared O'Dwyer says Batman and Robin are the 2 old codgers from the Muppets. LOL. Back to who we'd be like. Trumspieler, he seems to have gotten them right. Oh no, it wasn't Ballyhale, it was St. Rhinus. Okay, that's it from the show this week. If you want to get the audio podcast, it's at patreon.com/OurGame. There's loads of coaching videos there as well. Michael, chat to you on Monday.
Cheers, Cheryl.